Hello, Endeavor here. So tonight I wanted to do a stream, and it's just me for now. But I wanted to talk about the Covington Catholic scandal and the lessons that we can learn from it, because I think that there is a lot that we can pull out of this, and I think that it's very symbolic of the times and very symbolic of the times that we have ahead of us. So I think that it's something that we really need to take a lot of lessons from, and we really need to look at this as a projection for the future. This is going to be a rather short stream. It's really just going to be me going over my thoughts on the incident, and then I'll probably answer some questions afterwards. And if you have any questions, you can send a super chat. I'll probably answer that right away. If not, I'll probably answer the rest of the questions towards the end of the stream. And I'll just go over briefly the incident for anyone who doesn't know what happened. But yeah, and also just as a reminder, hit the upvote to help the stream kind of get out to a wider audience, help the stream grow. It helps me out when you do that. So for anyone who doesn't know what happened at the Covington Catholic protest, the scandal that went on Friday, January 18th. Well, basically what happened was boys from the high school Covington Catholic in Kentucky attended the pro-life March for Life in Washington, D.C. on January 18th, 2019. And at the toward the end of the march, a video emerged, and the video was of the boys. A particular boy whose name is already out there. His name was Nicholas Sandman. I mean, I wouldn't want to release his name, but it's already out there, unfortunately. But so a video of him smiling while he was being confronted by a Native American man who we now know has been identified as a man named Nathan Phillips. He's a Native American activist. And what happened was this short clip of the boy smiling while Mr. Phillips banged a drum in front of them made the news. It was posted on every mainstream media outlet. And Phillips actually lied to the media and told them a false story. He said that the boys had surrounded him and chanted, "Build the wall," and that they were intimidating him. They were being aggressive. And he said that they were really scared, and that he was really scared of the boys, and this all turned out to be complete bullshit. But nonetheless, the media ran with this story, and so basically, what happened was every single news outlet reported this: CNN, CBC, NBC. But I think it actually started off with BuzzFeed. I believe was the first one to release it. I might be incorrect about that, but it was all over the news. And on Sunday, these boys' names were dragged through the mud. They were doxxed and they received death threats. And even there were actually some boys who were not even part of that school, but had resembled Nicholas Sandman, who were doxxed too. There was even some a boy who I think he was I forget what his name was, but he basically was receiving death threats on Facebook, and he had nothing to do with it. He never had even met these people, and yeah. I think what's even more shocking, though, than the mainstream media kind of running with this story and just, pulling these boys through the mud whilst, either they had incomplete evidence or, they were just flat out ignoring the truth, is the reaction from the blue check marks on Twitter, the progressive activists out there. And some of them were really quite shocking. I'll link you to Tim Pool's video on this after the stream, because he breaks it down a lot better than I can. But I will give you a few examples of that. For example, Kathy Griffin called for these boys' names and wanted them to be doxxed. Someone with over 2 million followers on Twitter, a verified blue check mark. Reza Aslan said that Sandman's face was punchable. A Disney executive producer named Jack Morrissey, I've never heard of him, but he had a verified blue check mark on Twitter. He released a picture of someone feeding what looked to be a body into a wood chipper and saying that he wished for these boys to be fed into wood chippers with the MAGA hats head first. And the boys were even thrown under the bus by their own school and by Sandman's diocese. I mean, the school said they were looking into either potential suspensions or expulsions. They were looking into, just them being condemned by even people that you'd think would have their back. Like, at least you'd think that they would at least wait until the dust had settled before condemning them. They were pretty much instantaneously thrown under the bus. And yeah, these boys were basically just receiving just everything bad coming their way. And, later a longer video emerged which showed that the Covington boys had not only done nothing wrong, but in reality, they were actually the ones that were being intimidated. So basically, a longer video of emerged, and basically the Covington boys were waiting for a bus to come pick them up from the March for Life, and they had racial slurs shouted at them by a black radical group called the Black Hebrew Israelites while they were waiting for their bus to arrive. And the boys, in response, to being shouted at, and I even heard somewhere that members of the Black Hebrew Israelites had spat at them. The boys did their school chant. So they were doing the chants that they do at sports games. And they weren't chanting Build the Wall. They were doing the chants that they would do at the sports games at their school. And Phillips approached the boys and began playing a drum. And he went up to a foot away from Sandman's face and, started banging away at this drum. And, Sandman just stood there and he just smiled at them, probably because the situation was really uncomfortable. I don't know. But really all he did was just stand there and do nothing whilst they were being shouted at by the Black Hebrew Israelites, and Phillips was coming up to them and banging away a drum in their face. And despite the evidence exonerating the Covington Catholic boys of any wrongdoing, and that Phillips wantonly lied about the situation, the shitlibs still wouldn't back down. Reza Aslan and Kathy Griffin, they've doubled down on their statements on these boys. They're not pulling back anything that they've done. They're not pulling back the threats. Some of them have deleted the tweets. Some of them have been. I've heard a few accounts have been suspended, but really there is no real backtracking on the part of these progressive media figures. And for 2 days now, the boys have been shut out of the Catholic Covington Catholic High School has been shut down due to threats made against the boys and the school itself. There was a protest outside the school, even though the media was flat out wrong, and that we've even there's proof to show that the story was completely false, and there was protests outside a school over something that never took place. And the Covington diocese was evacuated today due to a suspicious package being found on their grounds. I wanted to make this I wanted to wait for the dust to kind of settle on this before I spoke about it. I did a stream with Academic Agent on Sunday where we talked about what was happening, and that was a bit more as it was going on. So I'll also afterwards I'll link you to that stream down below if you'd like to hear that discussion. But I think that there's several things that we really should look at, and it's very symbolic of what I think is wrong with a lot of both America, Canada, and the Western world in general, as we find it today. So why did this happen? Well, we shouldn't be surprised by this. In all honesty, I wasn't surprised by this at all. The second I saw that picture of Sandman wearing the Make America Great Again hat and smirking at Phillips, I knew exactly what was going to happen, and this only reaffirmed what I already knew. And I knew what was going to happen before I read the fake story, and I knew what was going to happen before I eventually read the true story. And so these boys were crucified by the media, doxxed, threatened, and it's not because of anything that they did. It's because of who they were. The facts didn't matter. It was the narrative that matters. These boys faced vicious attacks from the left because they were white Christian boys with Make America Great Again hats on at a pro-life march who wouldn't stand down, who just stood up for what they believed. And that was what sent the media into a frenzy. You see, this event really exemplified a cancer infecting America and the wider Western world. And it really paints a dark picture for the future, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm going to sound like black-pilled on this one, but I think it's something that, we do need to learn from this, because this isn't going to, we're only going to see more stuff like this in the future. There's a very deep hatred flowing through the organs of our society directed towards people of European descent. And daily, it's being aggravated by the liberal media and the intellectuals in the academy. And the reason we should not be surprised by this event, and we should really expect this to escalate, is because, this kind of hatred that they've built up, it almost has taken on like a religious fervor. John Mark, I think, put it pretty well that the left is running on a kind of a mother instinct. And what he had said was that they've kind of adopted the oppressed narrative, and they've kind of adopted the oppressed, the so-called oppressed classes as their children, and they've adopted the oppressor being, especially, straight white men or conservatives, Christianity and all that such. They've adopted that as their villain, really. And you really shouldn't be surprised that they're not really waiting for the facts, and that they're not even really interested in the facts, because it's religious for them at this point. And, the problem was that this picture of Sandman smirking at Phillips while he was confronted by Phillips, it switched it flipped every switch and cranked every single dial in their mind. And that is why it sent them into a frenzy. It's a white Catholic conservative boy at the pro-life march, not standing down in front of, a Native American activist. And it was just essentially a touchdown for their narrative. And that's why it just flipped every switch like crazy in their mind. And that's really why they reacted the way that they did. It's no different than an Islamist seeing someone blaspheme the Prophet Muhammad. It's religious for them. And, what's so concerning about this is that, even though I think I already knew this, but the mildest amount of nonconformity can really just send progressives into a rage at this point, in which they'll attempt to ruin boys' lives. It really doesn't take very much, because all these boys really did was just be there and kind of just be who they were at this point. It was them who were being shouted at by the Black Hebrew Israelites. It was Phillips who had gone up to them and banged the drum. All they simply did was just stand there and, not really do anything, just kind of stand there and not back down, really. And that's what really just, drove the left into this insanity. And because the problem is that they're just so used to, at this point, getting their enemies. They're so used to just getting conservatives to back down every single time that they raise their fist. And, this boy not backing down, it was very symbolic. And, I guess, to use a dated phrase, it triggered them. This is why they're doubling down on this. Some of them are saying that these boys are the new face of white supremacy or some bullshit like that. And it's because these people are not really driven by facts and logic or whatever. They're not, you're not going to be able to like just show them the evidence. You're not going to be able to sit down and explain it to them. It's really, at this point, they're really just driven by ideological hatred. And these boys really just embodied what they've accepted as their absolute evil. And that's why they reacted the way that they did. And as far as they were concerned, the boys were guilty of being white, and in the conception of good that they've adopted, they are guilty of being the greatest evil, really. And that's why they reacted the way that they did. So what are some lessons that we can learn from this? Well, we have to understand that this so-called, culture war, or whatever you want to call it, it's past the point of no return. I said this was the case after the Kavanaugh debacle, but for anyone doubting this, the events of the past week could shatter any hope that you had left in your mind of reconciliation. Going forward, I really don't see. I really don't see how we're gonna really have any productive conversations with progressives, because we just really saw that they aren't interested in even looking at the evidence when it's clearly in front of their face. And in many ways, I think I too am acting on kind of a religious impulse, because really, I mean, at this point, there's nothing that someone like Kathy Griffin could ever say to me in the world that would give me an ounce of respect for her. And I just really want this people that espouse this culturally Marxist ideology out of our institutions of power. I want them to have no influence over our lives whatsoever. And, any apologies that they make, So, them apologizing after the fact, which most of them aren't, by the way. Most of them are doubling down, but their apologies aren't worth shit, because you have to know that they aren't apologizing because of what they did, because of what they did to the boys. They're not apologizing for doxing and harassing these boys. What they're apologizing for is that they were caught lying out of their asses, because they didn't attack them because of anything that they did. They didn't attack them they didn't attack them for doing anything. They attacked them for who they were, and regardless, they still feel the same about about conservatives like these boys that they did beforehand. So we shouldn't accept any apologies from them, and we need to know that really there is no point ever apologizing to the left, because when you apologize, it really just makes you look weak, and they will never accept an apology from us. And it's just that I've heard it said that the first person to apologize loses, and it kind of is the case. And what you are seeing, though, is that many of them are apologizing to other progressives, saying, "I'm sorry that I was wrong about this. I'm not sorry to to these boys." And I'd say that if you are wrong about something, I mean, I think John Mark had said this too, but like if I'm wrong about something, I would apologize to like people that I misled on on our side, but I'm not going to stand down when it just makes you look weak. So and the other message that we need to really to get out of this, because you have to understand that we can make a lot happen out of this, even though it was obviously a pretty dark situation. At the end of the day, I do think it was a victory for the right, because well, I'll go into that, but what you do have to make out of this is you have to go to other conservatives, and you have to go to like some fence sitters or some centrists, or kind of the people that are trying to like diffuse the situation, like maybe the Jordan Peterson types or whoever, and you really have to say to them that this is the reality of the left right now. This is the reality of the mainstream media. This is the reality of the universities. They're not. This is not a bunch of Antifa goons trying to ruin these children's lives. This is the mainstream media. This is like Kathy Griffin, who has over 2 million followers on Twitter. This is Reza Aslan, who worked for CNN. I mean, these are the figureheads of the progressive movement, and they are willing to do whatever they can to crush their enemies. And you have to get that message across to other conservatives that they aren't willing to back down, and this is what we are up against. We can't play this game where it's like, well, we just need to get everyone to come back to the center. We just need to put our differences aside and kind of find a middle ground. It's not going to happen, guys. The center cannot hold. It will not happen, and they're just going to keep doubling down. This is just going to get worse, and you have to make that clear to people that you have to make it clear that if you don't want to live in a state, if you don't want America or Canada or any nation that you may be from, if you don't want it to be a nation where people of European descent have to kneel down to every single social justice warrior, activist, whatever, for all time, then you do side with the dissident right, and you have to understand that you are opposed at this point to the mainstream media. You are opposed to the ideas in the academy, and you are opposed to the progressive movement, and it should be completely unreconcilable for you. And that's the message you need to get across to other people on the right that maybe haven't that really haven't I guess woken up to this yet. It's that this is the new normal. We need to make it clear that our enemies will sink to any depths as to dox and threaten the lives of children to just ruin conservatives, and they're playing for keeps. And honestly, I think that's really the message that you have to take out of this. And and another thing, so some things to do for the future. Something that was really important. I didn't see enough people talking about this, but this is a perfect example of why optics matter. Because like as much as this event just filled me with anger on Sunday, it was a positive event for us. And optics won the day for the boys at Covington Catholic. All they had to do was just dress well, behave themselves, and peacefully stand up for what they believed. And it hit the left where it hurts, because any ordinary person who's not some far left ideologue is going to look at this, and it's going to look terrible in the mainstream media. I mean, no rational person will ever like think that, doxing, threatening, harassing children over something that they didn't do is morally acceptable. And the reason that they were able to get that is by having good optics. It's kind of like the "it's okay to be white" campaign. Like, look, we already know that the left, to put it bluntly, they hate white people. To put it bluntly, they have this very they have this oppressor oppressed ideology, which places Christians, people of European descent, and whoever they view as a oppressor on the side of evil, and that whatever those people do, to them, it is considered an act of evil. And we already know that, but to exemplify that, you have to have good optics. The "it's okay to be white" posters, for example, those were great optics because it was just a poster that said, "It's okay to be white," and nothing else. I mean, the only person that would possibly be against that message is someone who just flat out hated white people. It's like, are you saying that it's not okay to be white? Well, and that's why it was good optics, because it showed them for what they were. And, just like these boys were like, they were just a bunch of ordinary schoolboys at some pro-life march, some of them wearing "Make America Great Again" hats and doing their school chant and really just kind of minding their own business. They didn't even do anything wrong. And they just got barraged by these activists, the media, and the shitlibs. And it really just showed them for what they were. But had these boys had bad optics, though, like at Charlottesville, for example, like if they were being like extremely obnoxious, or if they had, if they had chanted, if they like shouted like racial slurs back or something like that, we wouldn't be, the MSM would have a lot easier time justifying this. But in this case, the progressives were clearly the bad guys, and optics won the day for the right on this one. And that's why it's so important going forward, because you got to justify to the average person that you are on the side of good. And because, I believe that we are, and the best way to do that is good optics. So, secondly, optics matter so much more for the right than they do the left. The left, they can do whatever they want and they can get away with it because they have the MSM on their side. Optics matter so much more for us, but that means that they matter, though. Like, we have to focus on them because it can make all the difference in the world. And secondly, you got to also get through to people that you have to get serious about undermining these institutions that perpetuate progressivism, because at the end of the day, it is very much like a battle of institutions. This ideology is coming from the organs of influence that's running our societies. It's coming from the media. It's coming from the governments, the universities, especially the corporations now, even. And you need to get serious about undermining these. And the best way to do that is by funding your friends, boycotting your enemies. Help your friends, punish your enemies. Give money to those people that are championing your cause. Deny money to those who are against your cause. The best way to do that is support campaigns that push for conservative values. If there's sign petitions, I know those generally don't do much, but it does help if you do get people talking about it. I don't know if they've set up any like GoFundMe's for these boys' legal defense, because they are suing. The school is suing the media, and there are people that will fight on behalf of them. I don't know yet if there is a way to fund this. If anyone comes across that, definitely you should be donating towards that, and let me know, because I'll do the same. And secondly, you have to be intolerant. You have to be intolerant of things that you don't like. The reason that the left gets a lot of what they want, and John Mark made a video on this also, is that they're intolerant. They won't accept any amount of conservatism. They won't accept it getting an inch, because they know if they give an inch, they'll take a mile. And when conservatives give progressives 1 inch, they take a mile with that. And this is why they wanted to stamp out these boys right away, because it's this mild act of defiance, but it's something that's so rare and so difficult to do. I mean, it can, like, something so mild can get you fired from your job. I mean, even though these boys aren't guilty of anything, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to go to university now, because they're going to be, unless they're going to a private university. I mean, just imagine what the local, like, LGBT whatever social justice shit is going to do to them while they're there. I mean, it's going to be hell. And what they want to do is stamp out this minor act of resistance as hard as possible, because they don't want to. They know that the second you tolerate an inch of what you don't like, you're going to lose a mile, and we have to start functioning under that mindset. So just you have to be utterly intolerant of anything that you do not want. And I mean, that's within reason. So, obviously you can't go into your university or your job and not like follow the rules that the HR or has put out for you. But you have to, like, within your own power, you have to understand that, you can't give an inch, because then they'll take a mile. And, I find with this, it was an inch that the right got. And I think that we can take a mile with this one, because we're gaining a lot of ground on this one. And with this case, I want to, like, pound it home as much as possible. I want to make it as big of a touchdown, really, as we can. And it's going a long way. I mean, I think the boys are being invited to the White House or something like that. And the best part is that Trump is not, like, he's just not bowing down at all. And, he tweeted that out. That was kind of the cherry on the top for us. It's just not backing down at all. And taking as much as you can with this. So, and lastly, I just think, at this point, we are kind of just done talking to them. Like, I don't really know what I can say to any of these progressive activists to change their mind. And I don't think there's anything they could ever say to me. So I think that really the key is that you need to let people know, you need to let other conservatives and maybe centrists and anyone that that would lose out by the progressives winning, anyone that has a lot to lose by this ideology having complete political, economic, and cultural control over Western civilization, anyone that will lose out on that, you need to make it clear to them that if you do not want this, you need to push for change. And you are a dissident, because this is what the media, the universities are pushing for. And lastly, I will also give a warning for the future. I think that, things like this are going to only escalate. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. There's going to be more stuff like this in the future. And I don't want to spook anyone, and I don't want anyone to do anything rash. It's important that you remain peaceful at all times, and that you like these boys, you do not engage in any violence at all, or any kind of activities that would either get you in trouble or be bad optics or whatever. But I will say that you should be preparing yourself for the worst. So, I would recommend to many people that start looking into, like, where you live, start looking into, the community around you, start looking into, how hostile would people around you be if your political beliefs were exposed? Would you have a community backing you up, or would you potentially be in a lot of trouble? And I do think you need to seek out both geographic areas, and you need to seek out people to surround yourself with that will have your back if anything happens. Because in many of these areas, I do fear for what'll happen when this escalates. So, I definitely think you should be looking. One thing that you can be doing is you need to be looking to set yourself up in a way that you'll be able to both keep yourself and your family safe, and then you'll have people around you that will support you. Like, for me, for example, I'm moving out of the city that I live in. I'm from Toronto, but I'm moving in about a month or two, hopefully, because for other reasons, but also because yeah, it's just not. It's a very poor location. And I do recommend just the normal, just exercise, eat well, start positioning yourself in a way that you'll be safe, because stuff like this is only going to escalate in the future, and you don't want to be the one having a package show up at your house. You don't want to be the one with people storming your child's school or whatever. So yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say on the situation. And if there's any other questions anyone has in the chat, let me know. I'll probably go on for a couple more minutes, and then I'll call it a stream. So if there's any questions, you can just leave them down below. Yeah. So yeah, so people are telling me about like times that things have gotten messy when political situations have escalated. Because expect that to become more and more common. Like I people in Britain are telling me that they expect that the situation there to escalate. The situation in America is going to, I think, in Canada, it's not as much tension, but the problem is that they still, like, the progressives still just are getting everything they want. And oh man, I'm really hoping that there's some kind of political resistance coming up, because oh man, it's gonna be difficult, because this is it's not gonna get better. We got to be preparing for when it gets worse. I got a question. Was democracy a mistake? You probably know my beliefs on that. Yes, it was a mistake. I've done plenty of videos on that, and I've talked about it plenty of times. I'm going to be talking about it again, but let me just say that in a democracy, in a full franchise democracy, and then once it becomes multicultural, and once there's really a lack of unity, a lack of shared history, it just becomes a free-for-all. It just becomes people trying to take as much as they possibly can from the state, and no one willing to put any work into maintaining it. I mean, and this is the entire point of social justice politics. It's to justify the expropriation of wealth from the dominant population, and democracy is the tool to do that through. And an interesting essay to read on that would be The Fate of Empires. Forget who that's by, but it's an essential read for anyone, any reactionary or any dissident right-winger, or anyone that's really interested in kind of the state of the world right now. That's an essential read. And one of the key turning points in The Fate of Empires is when when people begin to extract rather than to put in. When people begin to I guess, go against the JFK quote, ask not what you can do for your country, but ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. When people start to ask, what can their country do for me? Then they start to extract, and it goes downhill from there. But anyway, I'll do more videos on that in the future. Should we try to make situations like this happen more? Bait the left with more peaceful demonstrations? It depends. I mean, I don't want situations where people are, getting doxxed and getting like their lives ruined. But baiting the left is a good thing, I think. If you can do it safely, peacefully, and without endangering yourself, I think yes, because a lot of what they do, a lot of leftist protests are designed to bait people. Like that's what Phillips was trying to do. He was trying to bait those boys into doing something wrong, because he wanted the media to report that these boys had harassed them. And he wantonly lied to the media for that very reason. And yes, I do think that if it's done wisely and if it's done in a way, keeping in mind that we don't control the media, yes, I do think beta is a good thing, but only when it can be done well. And because even in the civil rights movement, the left back then did that a lot, and it worked magic for them. So it is something. If you can pull it off, it's actually quite a useful strategy. Is there any way to eject the person who performs bad optics from your movement? Unfortunately, no. This was kind of one of the problems with the alt-right, is that it kind of started off with some good ideas, but then a bunch of shitty people with shitty ideas joined in, and there's not really any way to kick them out of your movement, because anyone can just declare themselves part of a movement. I mean, this is kind of why I kind of like it to be a bigger tent, not to be something so rigidly defined, because you can just say, well, I mean, I have nothing to do with that person. You can really just like disassociate I think the best thing to do is just disassociate yourself with the person that's shitty optics. And I think the best thing to do is just to not be so like ideologically rigid, and to not, and to just have a big tent, because someone that's useful, you can say that person's in my movement. Someone that's not that's counterproductive, to say I have nothing to do with them. That's kind of just the key to it. You can't control it, but the best way to do is just kind of have an open tent and associate with the good people. What else? Do you think the racist black group do you think the racist black group were there to prime the boys with racist imagery and to induce more racist violence and violent reactions? Well, I think it's a lot of the same. Like, I mean, I tend to think like Phillips was there to bait them. There's no question about that. But I don't know whether the Black Hebrew Israelites were just insane, or they were trying to bait the boys. I mean, I think a bit of both. But at the same time, like, you have to understand, the Black Hebrew Israelites, they were acting atrociously. They were shouting, they were yelling slurs, apparently spitting at the boys, threatening them, and nothing happened to them. The left didn't suffer a bit from it. And the reason for that is because the media's on their side, and they just won't report on that fact. And it's just a lesson you have to learn. Yes, they were there to bait them, but you just gotta understand the kind of different power dynamics in the sense that there are certain things they can get away with that we can't. Okay, what else? The Tea Party has people with big arrows saying "not with us." That would go around falling to try to make people that look bad. It didn't work. Yeah, I mean, that's not going to work, really. I think that the best key is to just associate with who you with the good people, and don't associate with the bad people, pretty much. And then also, avoid just these big public events. Like, avoid things like Charlottesville. The March for Life was good because it was just this very general thing. It was just whoever's pro-life shows up. They didn't make it something like super, super ideological. It was just a one-issue thing. And I'd say that's the way to avoid it. It is difficult, though. Is there any hope for Canada, in your opinion, Endeavor? Yeah, I think there is. I mean, you see, the problem is that there isn't the same pushback in the U.S. Like, we're in very much the same situation. But maybe in the U.S. it's a bit more vicious at the moment, but there's just no pushback, and just this kind of ideology is just getting everything they want. So, they just and there's no one resisting it, really. But I have to think that eventually people will push back on it, and I'd like to see that happen, and hopefully I can contribute to that. So yes, I do think there's hope for Canada. If I didn't think that there was hope, I wouldn't be in it. So yes, I do. What else? We don't get to choose who people will associate with us. Yeah, that is kind of true, but just don't make it easy for them. So just don't make it so easy that they can just point to a picture and say, this guy's standing right beside you. It's it is true that it's something that's very hard to control. But just do what you can to have good optics, basically. Well, anyway, if there's any more questions, I'll answer them. But if not, I'll probably end this stream shortly. I just wanted to do this short stream because it's something that's been in the news lately. I think it's something that we really need to learn a lot from, and it's something that it's only going to escalate from here. So I'll probably just leave it there. Thank you for listening. Take care. And I will be having a new video out shortly. And let me know if you like this, if you liked the stream, because the reason I wanted to do this one was because it was something that was, current right now, but it was, first I wanted to let the dust settle. I didn't want to do it like immediately, but at the same time, I didn't want to spend a week making an edited video on it because it's kind of just, it's something that's just, relevant for a short period of time, whereas a video could take me 2-3 weeks to make, and this is something I can just do quickly. Let me know if you like this stream, because I could do more streams on just current events like this one. And that's not going to replace my other streams. I'm still going to have the conversations that I have with guests, like the one I had with Morgoth, or the other ones like that. Those ones are going to stay, and edited videos will be the same. But these are easy to do. So, if you like this, just let me know, and I can do more. Anyway, have a good night, everyone.